Well, it's a big audience today, and I'm very much honored. Thanks, David, for your kind introduction. And good to see so many friends from the press, including some of my colleagues from the Diplomatic Corps in Canberra. And so many friends from the press, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. It's indeed my great pleasure to address the National Press Club. Thank you all for your presence today. My special thanks to Peter Phillips. He's there. We talked about addressing the NPC last month when I was in Sydney, and thank you for your advice. And thanks to Maurice Riley, CEO of NPC, for writing me to extend your kind invitation, which gives me an opportunity to share my views on the much discussed, much talked about China-Australia relations. I feel very much honored to be Chinese ambassador to this country. Both China and Australia are great countries. We are two great peoples. Our two peoples have always cherished friendly sentiments towards each other. In the past 6 or 7 months since I came here as ambassador, I did some travel, both in the eastern coast and also on the western coast. And I try to reach out and meet as many people as possible, including the federal governments, the state governments, also so many colleagues and friends from different walks of life in Australia. And my feeling is very strong about the hospitality and friendship that Australian people are having towards the Chinese people, towards China. And I also feel very strongly about their expectations for a sound, stable, friendly, and cooperative relationship between two countries. And as ambassador, as a new ambassador, coming at a very special juncture, I have been very, very, very encouraged. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this year happens to be the 50th anniversary of diplomatic relations between China and Australia. If we look back at the past 50 years, we have indeed made great achievements in developing our bilateral relations. Contacts and exchanges at all levels and in all fields have been very frequent. Friendship and mutual trust have been constantly enhanced. The progress in practical cooperation has been incredibly outstanding. Here I have some figures for you. China has been Australia's largest trading partner since 2009. Our trade volume has surged from less than 100 million US dollars in the year 1972 to over 207 billion US dollars in the year 2021. That's counting for 34.2% of Australia's total import and export in the year of 2021. And Australia's trade surplus with China has reached 60 billion US dollars in that year alone. From that year, we have another 4 years, and that number has almost doubled. You can imagine it's a huge number. China is Australia's top export destination, with export to China accounting for 38.8% of Australia's total export. In goods in 2021, China is also Australia's largest source of imports, with imports from China taking up 28.1% of Australia's total imports of goods in 2021. And starting from 2018, China became Australia's largest source country of international tourists and tourist spending, as over 1 million Chinese tourists spend over 10 billion Australian dollars annually during their stay in Australia. Despite the impact of COVID-19, China continues to be the largest source of international students for Australia. As of May this year, there are 131,400 Chinese students studying in Australia, accounting for about 28% of Australia's total international students. Well, ladies and gentlemen, these are just some of the many figures, but they are telling us a very important fact, that the cooperation between China and Australia is important to both sides, and it's mutually beneficial in nature. In the past couple of years, unfortunately, the relationship between China and Australia was caught in difficult situation due to reasons known to all. This has greatly impacted the bilateral exchange and cooperation in various fields and severely damaged the friendship between our two peoples. This is something we don't want to see, and it goes against the interests of our two countries and our two peoples. Now, with the recent federal election, we have a new Australian government. Of course, this is the domestic affair of this country. It's the choice of the Australian people. But it did provide us with a possible opportunity to reset the relationship between our two countries. Chinese Premier Li Keqiang sent his congratulatory messages to the new Prime Minister of Australia, and Prime Minister Albanese returned with a letter of thanks. Defense ministers, foreign ministers from our two countries held their bilateral meetings. We have also seen ministerial communications between the two countries on education, on economy, and on trade. The meeting between the two foreign ministers was especially productive. Important consensus were reached. The two sides reaffirmed their comprehensive strategic partnership and expressed willingness to strengthen engagements, enhance mutual trust, properly handle differences, remove obstacles, and promote practical cooperation in a spirit of mutual respect and mutual benefit. These consensus are significant for the future development of China-Australia relations. The positive progress in our bilateral relations is encouraging. It's an encouraging start. And of course, there's a lot of work to be done. It's very important for both sides to make further efforts to keep the momentum, take actions for substantive progress, and to strive to bring our bilateral relations back on the right track. In this connection, State Councillor Wang Yi from China put forward proposals from the Chinese side, which were released briefly. By the way, it was proposals. If you refer to the Chinese version, it was 希望, means hope, and it's not demand, as we've been reported in certain media. And I would like to share with you my views on the following points. First, to reshape the perception on China and regard China as a partner rather than a rival. The essence of the point made by the Chinese side is actually the relationship between China and the current international order. Is China champion or challenger? The fact of the matter is China is a participant, a builder, and a contributor to the existing international system. China is the founding member of the United Nations and the first country to sign the UN Charter. China is a member of almost all universal intergovernmental organizations in the world. China is the largest troops contributing country among the P5s of the UN Security Council, and we are the second largest budget contributor to the UN peacekeeping. China attained the poverty reduction goal of the UN's 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development 10 years ahead of schedule, contributing more than 70% to the global poverty reduction efforts. As UN General Secretary Antonio Guterres said, in the decades since, China has become an increasingly important contributor to the work of the organization and a major pillar of international cooperation. In the past more than 40 years or more of reforming and opening up to the outside world, tremendous changes have happened in China. China's comprehensive national strength has been significantly enhanced, but China's diplomatic philosophy, China's foreign policy remain unchanged. China supports necessary reform and improvement to the current international order and system, but China never seeks to start a new one. China firmly opposes the international system with the UN at its core. The international order based on international law and the basic norms governing international relations based on the purpose and principles of the UN Charter. Because it serves the fundamental interests of China. China is developing, but China's development is to achieve above and beyond, not to challenge or replace any other country. No matter how China develops itself now or in the future, China will never seek hegemony, expansion, or sphere of influence. The development of China-Australia relations is at a critical juncture. China's policy of friendship and cooperation towards Australia remains unchanged. An objective and a rational perception of Australia on China and a positive and pragmatic policy towards China are fundamentally significant for a long-term, stable, and predictable partnership between China and Australia. Second, to create a favorable atmosphere and consolidate the cooperative relations of mutual benefit. Practical cooperation has been the backbone for China-Australia relations, making greater contributions to the development of China-Australia relations for the past 50 years. Even in times of difficulties and fluctuations, as we experienced in the past several years, extensive and in-depth practical cooperation between our two countries played a special role as a stabilizer and a ballast, without which our bilateral relations could have been even worse. China and Australia are economically highly complementary towards each other. Australia has been a long-term stable supplier of mineral and energy resources for China. China has been a competitive commodity supplier for Australia as well. Such practical cooperation has fostered a close partnership between our two countries. When we cooperate, we both win. When we don't, we both lose. So it is imperative for the governments of our two countries to adopt positive policies towards each other, take positive and concrete measures to improve the atmosphere of cooperation, solve differences through consultation, create favorable conditions to better serve our mutually beneficial cooperation. At present, the global economy is facing difficulties such as high inflation, weak recovery, and tight supply chains. The World Bank forecasts that the global growth will slow down and economic recession will be hard to avoid. Under such circumstances, to maintain practical cooperation between China and Australia is not only conducive to the stable economic development of our two countries, but also will carry special significance for us to deal with the current global economic challenges. Thirdly, to respect each other, seek common ground, properly handle difference. There are many areas where China and Australia share common interests. There are many issues on which China and Australia have common grounds. And these are the areas we have been cooperating, and we should continue to cooperate to the interests of both sides. Areas like economic development, improvement of people's livelihood, environmental protection, regional cooperation, climate change, combating cross-border crimes, free trade, multilateralism, among others. At the same time, as the old saying goes, no two leaves are alike. China and Australia, we are different in many aspects, in history, in culture, in religion, in development stage, and in political system. Different as we are, there are no areas where we have fundamental conflicts of interest. So it is very important for both sides to take constructive approach towards these differences. Try to narrow down differences through communication and dialogues in a spirit of mutual respect. The least thing we should do is to allow these differences to obstruct, even hijack the overall relationship and cooperation between our two countries. The world is diversified and the political system is taking different forms in different countries. Whether a certain country has chosen a good political system or not, it's for the people of that country to have the say. As we say it in China, only the wearer of the shoes knows whether the shoes fit or not. The key question is whether the system could help its people to live a better life.